Okay, good morning everyone. And we are enough to start our Revit class, I think. And um, today there are several things I need to show you. Let's start by discovering one extremely important aspect of Revit. There is something that a few of you are experiencing, and you asked. There is the library. So, first of all, library of Revit must be is something that you have to install if you haven't already copied mine from. Oops. If you haven't already copied mine from my USB stick. But even if you copy a library, that doesn't mean that you are actually using that library. And this is first. What to do is very simple. There is this. We need, hello everyone, by the way. What we need to do is this. When we go in Revit, what we have to check is this. We need to see which library we are using, and the way this is done is, not that hard actually. That works like this. Look, you have to go to File, then you have to go to Options, and into Options you need to open that link that is called File Location. What we find here? In here we find several important things there are. First of all, we can notice that when we start Revit, we have these quick shortcuts. There are construction, template, architectural, structural, mechanical. And they are there simply because we have in here, we have these links. So there is something called construction template, architectural, structural, and mechanical. But each of these links basically opens one file that you have in your computer. And you may notice this. Look, my templates, if I scroll this menu, my templates are located in this folder that is called C, Program Data, and then Autodesk RVT 2019, and then whatever, but US Imperial. And you can notice that all my templates are starting from a folder called Imperial. Why this is important? This is important because if I start working with this particular template, it happens that my units will be in inches. But what is a little bit annoying is that not only units will be in inches, and I can change them later, but names of all my objects like wall types, roof types, floor types, and so on and so on, all of them will remain with the name that says inches next to them. So what I have to do is this. At least I will change the link, the shortcut to begin, to the architectural template. So I follow these, I click into the link, I click these three tiny buttons that are next to the name, and if you don't see them, here is where you have to click this button here. And first thing that I have to change is that I have to change that I don't want to start from US Imperial default, while I will browse my computer. So I go up, I go to libraries, US metric, so that my names will be in English and units will be in metric system. And sorry, not here. Set templates US metric. So I have to go to templates US metric, and then I will use default metric. In this way, when I start my new architectural project, it would be in metric system, but also names that I find into properties, windows, roof, and whatever else, they will also show me dimensions in millimeters. And this is first. So this is first thing that you need to adjust in order to understand how to start a program. And this is first. Second thing that you have to do is you need to change also this second link here. The one that says family templates. Again, this is why. Simply because if you notice that you are working in millimeters, but your names are in inches, or vice versa, here is where you need to tell Revit, look, that you need to use or imperial or metric system. And how can you see the difference? The difference is very simple, because if I click Browse, I can see that the folder that I'm actually using up here is called the English I. So this stands for imperial metric, imperial system. So I go up, I select the one that is simply called English. So I click this folder and I click open. If you see now, this has been changed into template English. So this means that I'm going to use metric system, and I will use units like millimeters, centimeters, and whatsoever. Last but not least, so this is extremely important, is also that we need to change last parameter, that is by clicking this button here, the one that is called places. And if you want to, this is why, because again, I may start in metric system, I may have all my objects in centimeters, but in types in centimeters, but then I try to use windows, doors, or other components from the library, and I will discover that maybe those instead are still in a units that I don't want to use. So again, I change these parameters in this last location, so I click place, and again you can see that my Revit was starting in imperial library. So instead of using the library called RVT library US imperial, I click in here, I go up, and I use US metric, and I do the same into detail library. So I click here, I go up, I go to yes metric, and I use detail items, but I use the folder that is inside US metric. And I click OK. I have almost done. If you want to be a little bit more precise, last step that you can do is, instead of keeping the name of your library imperial library, you can just rename it as metric and metric detail library. In this way, even if you have several libraries, but having them, as I said at the beginning, doesn't mean that you are using them, but in this way, by changing all these settings in your Revit, whenever you start a new project, these will be default parameters. And Wait a second. Lila says, Mark, is possible to turn up the volume of your mic? It's not the microphone, it's my voice. I have no voice. It's not the microphone. So let's see. If I can. Let's try like this. But this is the maximum, also because then is it louder? Does it work like this? Yes. The answer will be yes, it works. So now we are ready to start a new architectural template, a new architectural project from architectural template. And now that I have all these adjustments done, I will start in metric system. I will start with my metric library. I will start with the Revit file in the way that I prefer to work. And so I click OK. I start my project in architectural with an architectural template. And today we need to see. First of all, I want to show you some final informations about the floor tool. We have seen it this last week, but I want to add a few more details to it. Then I want to show you floor. It's okay to use, yes, it is okay to use South Asian library. Whatever library you use, it is fine, but you need to use one at least. But South Asia it's okay. I just use US metric for two reasons. Reason number one is that I prefer to work with metric system because for me inches and feet make no sense. And I use the one that is US simply because it has directly English names for all types of components. That's it. No other reasons, but use the library that you want. So I was saying, today we need to finish a couple of things about floor. There are, last week we have seen floor, if I remember, and we've seen that floor is a horizontal structure. It works on the level where you are working, and what we have seen, if I remember, is that we have seen that thickness of the floor goes underneath the level that we are using in order to create it. So, just to remember you, we've seen this. Look, we are in level 1, we click floor, and we have simply to draw a closed shape that will be used as shape of our floor. With this being said, what is important to understand is this. First of all, floor must have a shape that is closed. Shape that you create can be whatever shape, but also, like other tools that we have seen, even like 3ds Max, what you can do even with floors is that you can have a closed profile that will give you boundaries of your floor. But if you, inside this closed shape, you draw another closed shape, when you will click OK, so when you will click green check sign that says that you are done with the profile of your floor, what you obtain is this. That is, you will obtain a floor object that has a hole inside. So, if I go to 3D view, 3D view that is here, you can notice this. So, outer profile of my floor gave me the volume of the structure itself, while second shape, the one that I've created inside, is creating a hole that is passing through the floor. And last but not least is this. If we look at our floor from a side view, as I said last week, probably, we can see that top face of the floor is the one that perfectly matches your working level. So this line here is my level 1. We can see that top face of the floor matches that position, while its thickness goes below it. Why this is important? This is very simple, and it is this. Look, if I read the height of my level 2, I can see that level 2 is set to have height from level 1 that is 4,000 millimeters. What this means is that from this to this level there are 4 meters. But if I go into my level 2 and I create another floor, let's say I make it here, and I click OK, when I will go to my 3D view, I can see that even here, floor thickness is going underneath the level. And this is important because if we measure free height that we have from the floor top face to this lower face here, these will be basically the height between the two levels minus thickness of the floor. And if we change the floor thickness, so if we select it and we make it, let's choose a thicker one like these, what we can see is, again, top position of the floor is not changing at all while thickness is going down. And what changes at the end is that from this point to this point is free height that we will have inside our room. That basically is the distance between what is in general called the distance from the floor to the ceiling of a room. Okay? And this is something that we must consider, because if we think like that free height is 3 meters and then floor thickness is 300 millimeters, then for example we have to set the level must have, okay, but level here must have a height that won't be 3,000 but will be 3,300, so that this height, this distance will be exactly 3,000 millimeters. And this is just to specify one extremely important thing about floor structures. Second thing about floor structures, but this will take really 1 second, is this. Exactly like walls, exactly like many other objects we have in Revit, when we click floor, we can choose between a list of preset kind of floor types. But again, this is just how our template starts. So if we are in a situation where we see that in our project we need a floor, because probably we had the chance to measure it, and we see that our floor is, I don't know, 275 millimeters thick, and we scroll this list and we don't find any type that fits exactly our project, like walls, like other elements in Revit, we can edit the type, and exactly like we've seen for walls, we can start from whatever available floor type. We can click edit type, and believe it or not, exactly like wall, we can click edit the structure, and even if in here this is a horizontal structure, what we have is we have the possibility to adjust layers of our structure, and we can not only change thickness of each layer, but we can even add more layers. And this is also exactly same dialog box that we will see in a second when we will see roof object. In here, it is even easier than walls to understand the meaning of a layer, because a floor is a horizontal structure and layers are horizontal layers. So technically what it means is that if I draw, let's draw it here, if I draw the floor in section, I may need to do something like this. What it means? This, for example, would be what in reality is the structure of a realistic floor. But if I want to make a floor in reality, what happens? It happens that people will walk here. So this will be the floor material. And if I want to add a material on top of my structure, what I have to do in Revit is very simple, and it is, I have to insert, let me move this, I have to click insert. This, if I want this to be my flooring material, so if I want this to be on the top of my floor, I have simply to, first of all, select that this is finish and this is not structure. Then I select it and I give it a realistic thickness, can be 0. Tiles or wooden floor or whatever other material at least must be 1 centimeter thick. So if I'm working in millimeters and I will write 10. But if I want this to be my top layer, so to be more precise, if I want this layer to be on the top of my floor, I will select the layer, I will click up button, up, until the floor layer goes as first element in this list. And this is pretty simple to understand. That is, top layer in this list is also top layer into the floor. Structure layer into the list is the layer that is in the middle in the realistic structure of the floor. But again, if I want also to be able to give a material also underneath the floor. So if I want to have whatever, even just if I want to paint it, if I want to have like a ceiling with a certain kind of texture, if I want ceiling to be made in wood or other materials, even in this case, I need to add another layer. Again, these must be finish, and I will make a simply a different finishing so that I can change the top and the bottom material in two independent ways. I give at least, again, 10 millimeters of thickness, but I will move this layer down till it becomes my lower layer. In this way, let me tell you, look, this layer and this layer means this. This layer means that. This layer will be this. And as I said, in reality, I need, right now I can read that my overall thickness is 170 millimeters. My goal is to have a floor that is 275 millimeters thick. So what I will do is simply, by keeping finishing thickness as they are, I will simply make my structure layer thicker so that overall dimension matches the one that I need. And in this case, I need to add 105, so this should be 255 millimeters. Press enter, and if you see now, my overall thickness has become exactly the value that I was looking for. But this is how to edit the floor thickness. And I click OK, and now I have that. And let me delete all these beautiful doodles. And now I have that my floor has been changed. What I did is I have modified an existing floor type that was called 150. I'm okay with it. I don't need actually a floor that is 150, also because in reality it is very thin. But now, just to make your Revit extremely reliable and to make your life easier, you can notice this. The name of the object is called generic 150, but the real thickness is 275. Where's the problem? The problem is that I can't remember these. So I can, instead of duplicate, I will just rename my wall type, sorry, floor type, and I will call it 275. So I have completely removed from my list the floor type that was the one called 150. Click OK. Boom! Now I have an object that not only as name but even as dimension is 275. And if I go to my level 1, or no, let's go to level 2, and if I draw it, of course, I said level 2, wait, let me delete it. Okay, level 2. If I make a floor, make it here. Perfect. Then I go to 3D, and I'll have this floor that is 275 millimeters thick. Then I can make it 200, and you can see the difference between the one that instead was 275. I need to show you last thing about floor, that is, floor as rigid structure is a structure that can be tilted. So you can also have a floor that will have a slope. And why this? Uh, First of all, because it is a feature that is in Revit, so I want to show you. But also because sometimes you need to create something like a ramp, but in many cases, and especially when you need to create interactions with walls, that we will see in a second, this kind of structures is better to be made with floors. And how it works is very simple. First of all, let's go to elevations and look. Can you see that in my elevations I have two levels? I have like ground floor and I have my first floor. What I have to do is I have to create a level that is where I want the slope of my ramp to finish. Let's say I'm okay with level 1 and level 2. So I will make a ramp that will really go from here to there. Later I will show you another example just to make something a little bit more interesting. But at least see this. We have two levels. One is called level 1, one is called level 2. So if we know these, we go to level 1 and we start by making a floor. Like this, for example. Before clicking OK, I need you to see this particular tool that is in your drawing tools of your floor, because by default when we click floor we use boundary line tools, and they are tools to give the shape of the floor that we need. But if we look below boundary line, we can find something that is called slope arrow. And why this is important? Because slope arrow is the tool that we need to use to specify where the floor starts and how the floor goes up in this simple way. We click slope arrow, we draw an actual arrow from one edge to another edge of your phenomenal floor. Once that we have this, what happens is that we need to check now that immediately after drawing our slope arrow, we can notice that the slope arrow can be selected. So I will click it. And also I can notice that if I click and I select slope arrow into the properties menu, I find these options called level at tail, level at head. What they mean is that they give me the possibility to specify the height of my floor edge at the position that is called the tail of the arrow, that is this point here. And just in case, look, this is the tail. And I can also specify level at the head, that is the position of this edge here. The way it works is very simple. There is this. You click that, level at tail, for example, would be my lower level, that is level 1. Perfect. And I click level 1. And this weird value that is always starting as 300, this is a value that must be 0. Last but not least, I click level at head, I click it and I select my upper level, that is level 2. So if I am right, let me tell you, as I usually am, when I will go in the 3D view, I will notice that this floor won't be horizontal, but this floor will look like this. It will be sloped, so it will go up, and this is height at the tail of my slope arrow, and this one will be the height at the head of the arrow. Want to see if it's true? I mean, look, I click OK, then I go to my 3D view, and I will discover that this is exactly the result that I have obtained. So instead of having a horizontal floor, I have made an angled floor that has top vertex perfectly matching the level that is called level 2, and I have lower vertex that is perfectly matching my level 1. And this is how to make sloped floor objects. Let me show you why this is important. I will show you first a weird example, then I will make something that you may find useful. But at least let's start doing this. Now, look what I create. I create one wall here, here, and there. And I press escape. Why this? You can immediately notice that I have made walls where I already have sorry, I was reading questions. If we want to create a slight slope pattern, yes, this is exactly how you should do. But if you give me 5 seconds, I will show you exactly how to do it, because this would be my second example, just to repeat how to use slope floor. So it is exactly the tool that you need. But let me show you this first. You may notice now that the floor and the walls that I've created, look, they are intersecting each other. And this is, first of all, it's terrible. And let me tell you, this is extremely wrong, because you can even notice that here there are missing edges, because walls are just passing through my floor. So what is important is to also understand that when you create horizontal structures, and this will be true not only for floor, and we will see this even in a few minutes when I will explain roof. When you create horizontal structures, they can interact with walls. One way is this. Look, I can notice that these walls are passing through the floor. So I have two completely opposite options that I can use. There are these. If I want, I can say that this wall starts from the floor and it goes up. If I need to do this, what I have to do is I have to basically trim this part of the wall that goes underneath the floor. How to make this? It's very simple. You have to follow these steps that are. You select the wall that you want to trim. Then you have to click, when you have selected your wall and your wall only, you have to click this option that is called Attach Top Base. And then before clicking the floor, you need to pay attention here. Look. Because by default, when you click Attach Top Base, you will be prompted that you are going to attach the top of your wall. Attaching the top means that you will trim upper side and what remains is only the wall underneath the floor. So if I keep top and I select now the floor, this is what happens to my wall. Poof. Look, I will do it again. Select, attach the top, attach to the floor, and this is what happens. That is, if I attach the top, basically Revit trims top part of the wall and what remains is only lower part. But if I want to do the opposite instead, I have to select the wall or even more walls that are intersecting same object at the same time. I click Attach Top Base, but I will select Base and then I click the floor. Poof! And join elements, of course. But now this is what I get as a final result. So this wall is a wall that has its top face attached to the floor. These walls instead are walls that have their bases attached to the floor. Okay? Later on, I will show you last interaction that you can have between roof and walls. I just need to make another example so that it will make a lot more sense. But as one of you asked, let's see a slightly more realistic case. That is, in general, it is pretty uncommon to have floors that are so angled they are going from one level to another. Or at least you can use them like for ramps, for parking lots, but I mean not as sloped. Like your classmate asked, if you need to create a small slope, and because she's going from one room to another, and there is like a, I don't know, 300, 400 millimeters of height difference, what you have to do is simply this. Look, you have to go to one of your elevation first. And in here you have level 1, that is your ground level. Then you have level 2, that let's say is your ceiling level. But if you have something that is slightly taller, like bathroom or like just another room, we'll call it bathroom, what you have to do is this. in your elevation view, you have to click level, don't save anything. You will create an additional level and you will set the height of your additional level exactly as you need. 400, 300, whatever. Look, let's make it 400 millimeters or even less. 300. There are 30 centimeters. So now what I have is that I have this additional level. What now is, which is my problem now? The problem is that my level setup is becoming a little bit confusing because I have a level that is called 1, that is ground, a level that is called 2, that is my ceiling, but then I have a level that is called 3, that is in the middle. So these numbers, these names make no sense at all, and I will simply rename them. So instead of level 1, I will call it ground, and I click yes. Instead of level 2, I just select the name, then call it ceiling, and I make yes. And this, like your classmate asked, let's say would be our bathroom. And yes, by renaming levels, I rename also how these floor plans are called into my project browser. But why doing this? Simply because now we can work with Revit in a more technical way. That would be this. I will go to my ground level and I will draw the floor. Let's say I make this floor, because this is main part of the house where the entire floor is at ground level. And I click OK. So this is not sloped, this is perfectly flat. Then I will go to my bathroom floor plan and I will draw another floor, and I will make it, let's say, here, and this will be the bathroom, because the bathroom itself, I mean, can have the floor that is sloped. It will be the connection that allows me, like a small corridor, I hope, that allows me to go inside the bathroom that will be sloped. So now I have these two floors, and if I go in 3D, you will see that, look, one floor is at ground height, next floor is at bathroom height. What I need to create now is this missing piece that allows me to make this very small slope that connects these two levels. So I go to ground, I draw another floor, and I will make it super pretty, so that it's not even rectangular, because it has to be just a closed shape. But now, before clicking OK, I go to slope arrow. I start my slope arrow from the edge that is my lower part of the floor, and I finish the arrow on the edge of the floor that will be my taller edge. Once that I have my slope arrow created, I can see that it is selected, and I can specify the height. at the tail and the height at the head. So in here, level up tail, I click, it starts from ground. And this offset, I'm so sorry, it's not my fault, but you have to manually change it to 0 all the time. But the level at the head will be the level called bathroom. Okay? And if I click OK, I create this floor. So from the top, it looks like a perfect continuous structure, but if I go to 3D or to my elevation or section, whatever, I will discover, let me make the font smaller, I will discover that instead I've made this masterpiece of a structure where I have that from certain part of the house that was at the ground level, I make this very slight, small slope, and I reach bathroom height. In this way, I can also now go back to my ground. Let's say I can make my walls. Imagine that I have a wall here, and I have, and look, I'm doing on purpose walls that are passing through all these objects. Maybe this is a little bit too precise. Exactly. But why this? Simply because if I go to 3D, I can see that all my walls have perfect similar height. But I can see also that in this part of the house, this wall is correctly starting from the top of the floor. But in here instead, the wall is going inside this sloped floor. So this is when I have to fix it by selecting the wall, click attach top base, click, and I want to attach the base, and click this. Poof! And my wall has been correctly trimmed. In this wall instead, I have two problems, because this part is going inside the sloped floor. This part is going inside bathroom floor. Not a problem, because I select my wall. Then I click attach top base. I click the base and I first attach it with these. So I fix this half of my wall and I just repeat this step and I also attach it to that. And now these, oops, I selected, sorry, I've selected the top. So select attach, select base, select this. Perfect. And now these walls have been correctly adjusted. Wait a second. Give me a second, then I will answer to your questions. So, let me fix also these walls by attaching their bases to this and by repeating the process so that I attach it to that. First of all. Then, let me see your questions. What if we need to create slope for drainage as done in working drawings? Oh, not today. It is possible to be done, but not in this way. Not in this way at all, because if you have to make these, we need to go a little bit more in depth by adding sub-elements in our floor that basically by adding these points we will make the floor with a very small slope, like 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters. But where is the mistake in here? The mistake in here is this. I mean, no, it's not a mistake. This would be fine if we are using floor for exterior purposes. So if you are making like a for outside when people walk, and or if you are using in a slightly wrong way, if you are using floor to make a flat roof. So only in that cases you can add a point. Let's say you will add something in general is into the middle, like this, and then you have to modify that point, and this is the Z height of that point, so you can move it up or move it down. If you want water to go on the outside, you make these lines so that you create a very super tiny slope. But this must be done only if you're using so I will explain it, I have explained it. But this is if you're using the floor as outside structure so that the water will go away. Or if you select and you modify the point, if you move these underneath, or you can also type like -10, the water will go in that point. So like there is a pipe in the center that will collect the water, like this. It is very small slope, but the whole water goes like that. And this is to make drainage. I think this was the question, but I think so. Second question, how can I attach slope to the level? Cause while wall is bonded, it looks like I can move. What do you mean? Look, if I create, you're welcome. And if I create a floor and I look and I go to my elevation view, I can see that when I create the floor is perfectly aligned with the level that I have used to create the floor itself. But this is something that is starting condition of the floor, because technically I can also offset the floor, so I can move the floor above my level. This is something that it can be done, okay? And this is called offset from the level. What it means? It means that when I make a floor, top face of the floor has 0 offset from the level that I'm using to create it. So it perfectly matches. But if I select in 3D or in elevation, if I select the floor and I move it, I can move the floor up or down. If I mean, and this is something that I can do by default. But if, for me, This is something that should never happen. If I want to have that the floor and the level that I have created are always attached together, and I want to avoid making these by mistake, the thing that I need to do is I have to use a line tool. So if I want to avoid this problem here, I will select modify, I click align, and first I click the object that I want to use as a reference, that is my level. Then I click top face of the floor. But if I want this floor to stay there and I want to lock movement in elevation of the floor, once that I have aligned the floor to the level, I also click lock. And in this way, I basically remove that possibility that exists, that is in between having the floor and using its offset to shift things up and down. Okay? Sorry, suppose happen only for slopes. No. It doesn't happen only for slopes. And this is something that is in general in all Revit, tools, in all Revit functions, believe it or not, even if, let me tell you, makes no sense, but sometimes can be useful. You can do even, look, you can make a wall. And then, if I select the wall, I can see that the wall has a parameter that is called the base offset. So, if I go to elevation, I can see that, make the font smaller, I can see that the wall has been created into the level called ground. So, I can check that the base of my wall is starting exactly from the ground. But if I need sometimes to make complex 3D models, sometimes you may need, you can select your walls, you can change what is called the base offset, and you can make positive values to lift walls up, or you can type negative values to bring walls underneath the level that you have used to create them. So if I use 500 and I click apply, poof, my wall will start flying. Or if I use minus 300, consider always this, that is my ground level, my walls can be placed below their starting level. So, base offset or offset in general is something that is always, do I have to use a line also for slopes? No, you don't need it, I think, because if you, let me see, if you make a floor and you use slope, and you say the way to attach it, the slope to a level is from their parameters. So I select the slope and I click it here. Default, instead of here I make ground, but offset again is 0, because if you change offset, what happens is that you are sticking the tail to the ground. But if there is a offset, it will be stick it to the ground, but it will go 300 millimeters above. So no, offset here, offset there must be 0. Then you select two levels, one at the tail, one at the head, and that's it. In this way, the slope arrow is automatically attached to these two levels. And we can see that if we go, not these, if we go to this elevation, we can see that this is perfectly working. And also, to prove that these objects are, that the slope and levels are sticky together, we can simply check that if I move level up, the head of the slope is attached to my bathroom level, and they are sticky together. There is a link in between. You don't have to use any additional tool. So, whenever you move the level, you also change the height of your sloped floor. Okay? So, perfect! And this is almost everything that you need to know about floors. Just one last unbelievable thing, that is this. Look, last thing we need to know about floors is this. If instead of making floors before and then making walls, if I go to my floor plan and I make first walls and then I make floors, what happens is something pretty interesting. That is this. Look. Let's say I draw this profile of my house. And then, why not? Let's also make a curvy wall. Fantastic. What happens now is this. If I want to make the floor, first of all, it would be extremely annoying to try to retrace all these walls, because I have no idea angles, the curve. I mean, it will take forever. But I can see this. If I click floor and I click boundary line, I can also notice that the default tool that Revit gives me in order to draw floors is not making lines, but it is this tool that is called Pick Walls. And if you want to see it, I will highlight it. It is this one. Why this is important? This is important simply because by default I don't have to retrace my walls, but if I have already made my walls, if I simply move my mouse over one of my walls, not even all of them, and I don't click anything, I'm not clicking anything right now, but what I do is I move my mouse over one of my walls, then I press Tab on my keyboard. If I press Tab, I will highlight immediately all my connected walls. And because my mouse was closer to the outer edge of my walls, if I left click now, poof, I will discover that in one click I have already recreated the entire profile of my house. And if I click OK, I have immediately created the floor that goes from the ground level, so that goes underneath my walls. That is this. and whatever shape my walls had, the floor perfectly matched it. Okay? But let's see this last unbelievable thing that happens when you use floor. That is, you can notice that my walls are pretty tall, and they go even higher than my second level, the one that I've called ceiling. Okay? Why this is important? Because what I will do now is I will click ceiling, that is the level that is above, and I will make another floor. And I will also use, because I'm lazy, I will also use the same exact tools that I've used before. So I click floor, I click pick walls, I move my mouse over one of my existing walls, and again closer to outer edge. I press tab now, and then click. What happens when I click OK is that Revit will ask me a question, that is, if I want to trim my walls, and I will answer yes. Look. Basically, this question is just telling me that my walls are super high, and if my walls are like these, the floor is passing through them. So this question is telling me that if I want to correctly remove that part of the wall, all of my walls, that is actually overlapping the floor. I click yes, and if I go to the 3D view, I will discover this. Even if my walls are still super tall, you can notice that by answering yes to that simple question, my walls are correctly trimmed in that horizontal part that is where the floor is passing through. And this will make, the day that we will study sections, this will make also section drawings appearing correct, because I will cut the section and I will see the wall on top, and the floor in the middle. If by mistake, when it happens this question, I click no, I will have then technical drawings that would be wrong, because I will have the wall that continuously goes from below to above, and in the middle I will also see the floor that is overlapped to the wall. And this is last simple thing that you need to know about floors. So you know basically everything you need to do. Let's use, I hope it will be enough. If not, we'll start from here next week, because I have also to specify what you have to do as homework. Let's see instead how to work with roof tool. Why this? I explained roof after the floor simply because it is pretty similar, and it works in this way. Look. So I delete this part. Let me go to my ceiling, that is my higher level, and I'm going to use this simple tool that is called roof. Roof is a tool that has a lot in common with the floor, so even the way Revit gives you to create the the roof is very similar, because when you click roof and you see boundary line, you can see that the default option is an option called pick walls. Okay? There is only one small difference between floors and roofs. That in general is that roofs as structures are not perfectly matching the profile of your walls. In general, roofs are a little bit bigger so that they can protect walls from the rain, from the water. And because I know that you don't believe me, I will download a couple of pictures. Let's see if I find interesting pictures. And I want to use this picture here. Exactly. And you can say, which picture? Wait 1 second. This picture here. Okay. As you can see, and there are many other examples, but you can always see that roof is not a structure that perfectly match the wall that is underneath. It is instead a little bit bigger. This dimension in construction is called overhang. So it means that the wall finishes here, but the roof goes like this, and the part that exceeds is called the overhang. Why you need to know this? You need to know this simply because when we go in Revit and we click pick walls, you may notice that there is a number that is called overhang. Sorry, wait, I forgot. Wait, I forgot to read messages. Why is floor cutting wall and not the opposite? Okay, I will show you this later. Let me finish 1 second with the roof, and then I will show you that part. 3 seconds. And see this. I forgot what I was saying. Because you see line into the... Yes. Wait a second. Let me see, at least, let me show you at least a couple of things about roof, then we will go back to the floor. So, when we click pick walls, if overhang is set as 0, let's say I pick these, and I will see that the edge of my roof will perfectly match the edge of the wall, and this would be technically, visually, in general, wrong. I click Ctrl Z. So before picking my walls, I need to set a dimension for the overhang that basically is an offset. So let's say I select, I don't know, 600 millimeters, and I will see that if I select the wall, the actual line won't be perfectly matching the wall, but the actual profile of my roof would be 600 millimeters further from the wall. This is something that can be the same for all my edges, or even edge by edge can be changed. So I can make it 300 here, can make it 1,200 there. I mean, this would be terribly wrong, let me tell you. Let's say 300 even here. This is not matching, so because I forgot this wall, exactly. And there is a, no, it works. And then I can change it to 1,000. at the end, what is important is that even for roof, what you have to obtain is a closed shape. I don't know if this will work with this crazy dimension, probably not. Ooh, it works instead. And again, because my walls are taller and Revit will ask me if I want to cut them, and I will click yes. But if I go in 3D, this is what I have obtained. There is roof structure that goes above my phenomenal weird house. Okay? Let me explain at least two things into roof. Then I will show you again the question that you asked about the floor. Then I will show you the homework. Then we'll go home. Or probably you are already at home, to be precise. Anyway, let's see this. First simple thing is, in the roof, all edges of the roof are creating sloped planes by default. And again, by default only, all sloped planes that are creating my roof have exact same angle, so they have the exact same slope. First of all, what you have to know is that if you create the roof, you can change, if you want to make a uniform adjustment to your roof, you can simply select it. And if you scroll parameters of the roof, you can just click a little bit down here. You can find a parameter that is called slope. And this angle means that starting from the horizontal plane, that is where I was creating the roof, all my planes that are creating the roof are all 30 degrees angled. So from horizontal to this. But if I need, I can change this parameter, and this will change all slopes to all planes that are making my roof. So let's say I can click it, change it to 10 degrees, and you will see that the roof will be less angled. If you also click apply, exactly, will be a lot less angled. Or the opposite, if I select the entire roof, change the angle, let's say I make it 45 degrees, click apply, poof, and the roof becomes a lot taller than before, okay, because again you are changing the angle of all of your planes that are creating the roof. Okay? But there are two things that you need to know about roof slope, at least. There is this. Look, I make another roof, but I will just make it easier so that we can have less edges to work with. Look, I make this custom shaped roof that is covering the house that I've made before. Before clicking OK, we can notice this. If I go to select, can you see that you are able to select each edge of your profile, of the roof profile? The answer is yes, you can see it. But you can notice that whenever I click one single edge, next to it there is this blue number that is not random. This is exactly the slope that the plane that starts from this edge will have. So, not only I am able to change the overall slope for all planes of my roof, but if I want to create something more complex, where I want to have like one side of the roof less angled and one side of the roof more angled, what I can do is I can select each edge of the roof and changing manually the number that is written next to it. So let's say I will make this side of the roof like 15 degrees. These, and that, I will leave them 30, but just to show you, I will change this one, select the number, I will make it 60 degrees. If I am right, when I will go to my 3D view, I'm expecting to see that in this side of the house, the roof will go like this, so that from the horizontal plane it will be 60 degrees angled, but from this side of the house the roof will be like that, and this will be 15 degrees. And let's see if I'm right. I mean, I know that I'm right, but let's check it. Yes, I want to cut these. And if I go to my 3D view, let's see. Whoa, that's unbelievable. Look at that. This is exactly what is happening. That is, this plane, starting from that edge, has a slope that is 15 degrees. From here and there, these two planes have the slope that is 30 degrees, as well as this and that. But this one, instead, is 60 degrees angled. And this can be done because you have the possibility to change segment by segment, part by part, independently the slope of your roof while you create. Last thing that I want to show you today about the roof is this one. Look. And this is also the reason why I wanted to open this particular picture. That is, if you notice, in here you can see that imagine you are drawing this roof from the top, and you can also check the shape of walls of this house. This house, let me draw it for real. This house, so let's delete this horrible thing, and I go to the ground. This house has the shape of a angled T, so it looks like this. Fantastic. So if I draw the roof of this house, I can technically notice that the roof covers this house, and in this wall, basically, not only there is no overhang, but there is also no slope. While if I keep drawing the roof, then here goes like that, and then it goes behind, I can see that from each of other segments, there is the slope. So this is angled, this is angled, this is angled. This in here there is no slope at all. So how to obtain this in Revit? That is very simple. If you want no slope, what you have to do is this. You go to your upper level, you make your roof, and here we will do exactly this. Look, let's say there is a very small overhang, like 300 millimeters. I select these, and that. Then I make overhang 0, and I select this one, so that this is the front of that house. But if I am still inside the creation process of my roof, and I can click modify, and I can select my segments, not only for each segment I can choose the angle of the slope, and 30 degrees is more or less the realistic one. But if in here I don't want an angled plane, but I want that the roof there is just vertical, what I will do is I select this segment and I click this option up here, where by default it is always clicked define slope. But in reality I will deselect it, so that in here there won't be any angled plane. I click OK and cut my walls. Ready for this? Look at the result, because this would be a masterpiece. I mean, ready, steady, go. Boom! You will see that this is exactly what has happened. From here you have a slope, here you have slope, here you have slope, in here, so into the front of this house instead, because I have deselected the option define slope, I obtain exactly this particular effect. That also, let me tell you, is not something that is so uncommon for roof to be made like that. There are a lot of cases. Look at this very complex roof type here. You can notice where there is a slope, here there is a slope, here there is not, here there is not. And to create all these kind of complex combinations, you need to check or not the option that is called define slope. Okay? And this will be for today last thing that I will explain for roof. Even if there is one more thing that I should tell you about roof, but we will do this next week. Before explaining and answering, because I'm not forgetting that we have a question going on, let me show you what to do as homework for next week. That would be insanely beautiful. There is this. You have for, and technically you should do it for today, you should have done a homework that looks like that. The one that has that I gave you in order to use the combination of AutoCAD and Revit together, and this is something that you have there. Keep it as it is. Just make a new file where you will make a copy of that, because what you have to do, and this will be phenomenal, put it this. Of course, you need to put the floor as ground floor. But then you need to create a second level, and the second level must be done in this way. Second level will match. I mean, imagine that here it is matching. It will match your ground level, but it will cover this area only. So these will be your walls, basically. Whoa, this is horrible. Anyway, so here you will have windows, windows, window, window, window. Here you will have a door, so that this part into your upper level, this part will remain a balcony. Then, on top of your second level, you need also to put a roof, okay? You can create the roof as you want, you can make it like these, you can make it, I mean, feel free to create the roof as you like, but you have to put the roof on top of that, and this will remain a balcony. And you will make this file ready for next week, because next week we will talk about, first of all, I need 5 minutes to explain additional, wait, I have a question that says, you just send homework through email. For now, if you want to know if you have to send homework by email, the answer is this. Make a screenshot so that you will remember it. Then, during the weekend, I will find a better way to have, oops, wait, my face is covering the L, so let's move me, exactly, so that you can say, Marco, it wasn't visible. So, the answer is no email. I will find a more interesting way to give all of you the opportunity to upload homeworks, but give me the weekend in order to figure it out an interesting way to do that, as I said, like a shared Google Drive folder or a shared Dropbox folder, but not by email, because it would be confusing if I have emails for questions, email for homeworks, then I have to copy each file. No email. So next week we'll see roof, but we will mainly focus our explanation on stairs. This is why you need to have already prepared a file that has 2 levels, so that we will create stairs that will connect 2 floors of a same house. So let me answer to the question that our classmate asked, that is, why floors are cutting walls and not the opposite. The answer is very simple. That is, sometimes you need it, sometimes not. What it means? If you make a wall like this, and this wall is your exterior wall, If you do this particular wall and you want the wall to be continuous in your drawings from your ground level to your 13th floor, the problem is not that the floor must cut the wall or wall must cut the floor. If you want this, you should simply select inner face of your walls and then making your floor. In this way, sorry, I go to my second level, ceiling. So I click floor, I click this inner edge, and then I will continue like this. I click yes, any case, but then I go to 3D, and this is what happens. If these are my exterior walls in construction, it is true, wall goes up and the floor goes there. Technically, this is not even 100% correct, because to be 100% correct in construction, the floor should go a little bit inside. So let me make it thinner, because if you want to be precise, in here we should have something like this. So this should be in reality how the floor is created. It doesn't go all the way through. It is not even exactly stick to the wall, but we won't go in such structural details in Revit, even if it is possible to adjust it like that. So if this is your exterior wall, the problem is that you simply don't have to select exterior face, while you should select your interior faces. So why instead it is important to know that option that is called trim rather than not using it? Simply because if we are making, look, if from the ground we are making walls that are, let's say, our partition walls, so there are these, and then I make another partition, and then I have another partition, and then another partition, and so on and so on. What happens is this: if I have all these walls and all my rooms are the same through all floors, if I go into my ceiling and I make the floor and I make it like this quickly, see what I have. I have that. These are my exterior walls, so I snap the floor to inner edges, but these inner walls instead are passing through the floor. So this, did I click OK? No, sorry. Wait a second. Ground, these are not passing because they are too short. So let's make them unconnected. Sorry. 8,000. No, 80,000. 8,000. Exactly. Look, now they work. So if I make this floor and I click OK, what I have to do is I have to see that these now are wrong, because I can see that they are not trimmed correctly. So this is why I have to sometimes trim the wall with the floor and sometimes not. Okay? Because if not, I will have this kind of problems, and this is wrong. Because in construction, when you make partitions, instead you first make horizontal structure, and on top and below you should find your partitions. But if I click a no now, I mean, it is super complex to redo it, but we will start next week because the bell rang and I have just 3 seconds before going home. Is it okay? Let's wait a couple of seconds. Perfect. No more questions. And we will start from roof next week. In the meantime, I don't know if you can hear the bell that is ringing, but in the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next week. Ciao. And I stop. Bye.